Hour 2 of the von Haessler Doctrine begins right now. I see Jared Yamamoto running full speed to hand headphones to our guest. And our guest is Mr. Erick Erickson. Thank you for being here, sir. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Now, the idea of this exercise is that Erick and I completely disagree on something. And unlike most people in this country, I think we're going to try to disagree like two gentlemen. Have
Amazingly.
I like this. Gentlemanly disagreement. I do believe that we're 180 on this. I think we're as far apart as you can be.
I like him the best.
Yes, Volodymyr, I know that
Thank you. Do you have any money?
You listen. I don't, but I know you listen to Erickson. You don't listen to me. I know how it is. It's okay.
It's okay.
So we're talking about the whole Ukraine thing, and for the most part, we could get into an hours-long discussion, and I don't want to do that to you. Obviously, I want to talk about where we are right now. I've been against being a part of this since the very beginning, since before the invasion even happened. I'm not a fan of NATO. There is no Warsaw Pact. I think NATO should have gone away in the 90s. I think the United States uses it as a shadow second military to get things done around the world. So I'm not a fan of NATO. And I'm not a fan of Putin either. I just recognize that he is the leader of a country that has more nuclear weapons than even we do, and so we just kind of got to deal with him. But one day we can talk about how we got here.
Yeah.
For right now, I take it that you are not into what you think the administration is kind of pushing to bring the war to an end. And since people hear me talking my point of view on this show all the time, your point of view on this, why shouldn't we be doing it this way?
Yeah, so my concern is that you can't trust Putin. He's shown you can't trust him repeatedly. In fact, even the invasion of Ukraine, he was the one who arranged a protection pact with Ukraine if they would give up their nuclear weapons back in the 90s. It was Putin who negotiated that for Boris Yeltsin. So the Soviet or the Russians under Putin said, we'll protect you from invasion if you give us your nuclear weapons. And the United States says, we'll do it too. It was actually one of the great bilateral deals. And then Putin has repeatedly broken his word on that. So for us to say, now we will give you land you haven't conquered in Ukraine in exchange for ending the war, I don't think we can trust him. And I don't like the fact that we'll give a security guarantee to the Ukrainians, because if you can't trust Putin, then we're going to be where neither you or I want. We'll be bound by a security guarantee to help them, as opposed to the default where we are right now with Trump structured is we're not lending them money. We're not sending them money. We're allowing the Europeans to buy all of our old weapons. We're using their money to build new weapons for us, and they're arming Ukraine. I mean, just the real perspective is, and I'm not making this up, if you put a snail on the border of Russia and Ukraine and allowed it to walk straight through Ukraine, the snail would have gained more ground by now than the Russians have gained in Ukraine.
Yeah, but that is because the Russians are not fighting Ukraine. They're fighting the entire Western world. If they were fighting Ukraine, this would have been over in a matter of weeks, maybe months.
I don't think so. I mean, remember, they tried to land in Kyiv and take it within 2 weeks of the war, and they were repelled. Now, they are fighting the rest of the world in the sense that we're backing the Ukrainians, but we're backing the Ukrainians because we gave them a security guarantee in the 90s, and now we want to give them a second security guarantee.
Well, okay, well, I can go a couple of ways. One is I think that we've done an awful lot of lying over the years. I think there's plenty of evidence that our CIA was involved in the coup of the elected president there in 2014. I think that's a big deal. I think our CIA has been all over Ukraine forever. Crimea was never the closer NATO came to Crimea, it became inevitable that something was going to happen. Crimea was gifted to Ukraine in the 50s. A lot of people in the Soviet Union don't even understand why Khrushchev did it, but he did it as some sort of friendly thing. But they still...
By the way, I agree with you on Crimea because Catherine the Great's the one who conquered it.
Yeah, well, yeah, but my point is they gave it back as like a gift, but they've always kept their submarines. They have a naval fleet.
Yeah, they've got a naval base there. It's the only warm water port the Soviets have ever had.
Yeah, so, and then I believe all of this could have been averted if the whole world the Western world said, no, we're their friends. They're never going to be in NATO. The concept of why has NATO continually pushed itself closer and closer and closer to Russia? Are you familiar with the Niet means Niet cable from William Burns?
I'm not
2000.
sure.
So William Burns was the ambassador to Russia. I think this is 2006, 7, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote a famous cable back that said, "Nyet means yet." He was talking about Ukraine. He was also talking about Georgia.
Yeah.
Mostly talking about Ukraine, basically saying, even people who hate Putin agree with Putin on this. This is a red line. Ukraine is a no-go. In history, the Russians were invaded twice through Ukraine. And the Russians lost a third of their entire population between the two wars. So I think it's something that necessarily we don't understand. This is something that bothers me about our intelligence agencies. First of all, that they run our foreign policy. They decide who we're going to go to war with, who our friends are. And our intelligence agencies are just messing around with too much in the world. And then our reportage of all of this is always basically, America's just trying to do the right thing. And then these other countries, they're hacking us and they're doing this, they're doing that. But meanwhile, we're overthrowing governments. We appear to be very much involved in the overthrow of the president at the time in 2014. These are important things if you're Putin. Do you believe in the Monroe Doctrine for the Americans?
I do.
Then Ukraine shares 1,000 miles of border with Russia. The idea that Putin shouldn't think... Do you believe that he shouldn't have any sphere of influence whatsoever?
I don't...
Not him, Russia.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I think that these countries in Eastern Europe were under totalitarian regimes by the Soviets, and many of them chose to come to the West. I would disagree to a degree.
Do you think that we should have been, our CIA should have been all over Ukraine for so long? None of this is poking the bear. None of this is. We have encroached.
I kind of disagree with your presuppositions on the CIA involvement to begin with. I think there were certainly some, but I think it's overstated globally. I don't think the CIA is as competent or as nefarious as a lot of people think. For example, I would disagree with you that it's our intelligence agencies that set our foreign policy. I actually do think the political leaders set our foreign policy. I think the CIA can oftentimes have an independent streak that it doesn't need to have, and that the Church Commission undermined the CIA effectiveness in the 1970s to the extent that I think the CIA is more of a boogeyman now than it actually is. There are certainly other agencies out there.
We have a lot of other intelligence.
Yes, we certainly do. I would be more mindful of them than the CIA. But I would also say I don't care about Putin's sphere of influence. What I care about is that Eastern European countries, after the fall of the Soviet Union, chose to come to the West. We've never allowed Ukraine into NATO. The Russians
but we
keep
kept
saying
that we wouldn't take it off the table.
We never did take it off the table, and perhaps we should have, yes, but we never actually allowed them to come in. But the Ukrainians are people who should be entitled to their own sovereignty, and if the Ukrainians choose they want to be in the West, why not let them be in the West? Because Vladimir Putin wants a sphere of influence. I'm an American. I don't care what his sphere of influence is.
What if Venezuela wants Iran in Venezuela? Then?
Well, I care about our sphere of influence because we're Americans. I'm on Team America. And look, if the CIA is going into countries and overthrowing regimes to bring in better regimes, I mean, part of the problems that Ronald Reagan had in the Western Hemisphere was Jimmy Carter decided to do humanitarian aid and whatnot and allowed the Soviets to build up certain regimes in Central and South America. Reagan felt compelled to push out. So I agree countries want spheres of influence. And I actually think the dynamic that Trump is pushing right now is he wants a Western Hemisphere sphere of influence and let China and Russia fight about the Eastern Hemisphere. But I kind of like being the leader of the free world, and I don't want to give up the rest of the world.
I think we're a little too focused on somebody wrote a paper at a think tank somewhere in the 90s. Boy, the people who wrote papers at think tanks in the 90s are still affecting this world. But somebody wrote a paper that said the most important thing for America is to make sure they dominate the 21st century. And I don't think anybody who has 2 jobs and hustles with an Uber and whatever is walking around every day thinking, I want my tax money to go to make sure that America dominates the 21st century.
I think they should, but yeah, I don't think they think about that.
But why should they? I mean, if our system is that great, we just have to keep knocking everybody over in order to survive? I mean, there's no... Look, I know that countries are nefarious. They're going to mess with each other. But there's a way to kind of... If we did have a tripolar world, there would be... Yeah, every country... But let's, when reporting, recognize that we're messing with them too. We're hacking their systems too.
Yes, and we should.
And, okay, I'm saying is, if you're just an average American who doesn't follow politics the way that we do for our living, you just think, why are all these countries hacking us? And no, this is a game that's played amongst countries, and we are the most powerful, and we have $1 trillion budget every year for this stuff. So my guess is we're better than they are at doing it. And if more people saw that this is a game that goes back and forth, I think we'd be a little less to buy into this, the neocon thing of there's a bad man and he must be stopped. That's always the story.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a game. It's geopolitics, and it's the way it always has been. It's the way it always will be. But after World War II, European countries, battered and bruised as they were, and a lot of Asia, said, we're going to trust the Americans to lead the free world. We got the Soviets over here. We got the communists. And the entire world since post-World War II has been arranged to our benefit. So you've got the benefit of not having to prove the negative I do, that people are walking around saying it costs too much. Why are we doing this? My response is that's because you don't know what it would be like if we didn't do it. The interest rates, the inflation. Look at every other country in the world. Great Britain, every other country. China is in deflation. Europe has higher inflation than us. We have lower interest rates than everywhere else in the world. The exchange rate is in American dollars, so we don't have to pay an exchange rate to do global trade anywhere. So it saves us money by this. If we have a tripartite world, suddenly the exchange rate comes, are we trading with the Russian bloc or the Chinese bloc?
Well,
we're suddenly paying a premium.
These are the things that are going to have to be worked out, but it's better than constantly being at war. But I'm so tired of this. We got to fight them now so we don't have to fight them later. But when you get to later, we're fighting somebody else now so we don't have to fight them later. And
we're always going to be in a state of battle with someone. I mean, the only time we had great
cold
peace
or hot, though,
was after the Soviet Union fell, and even then we had troops deployed all over the world fighting skirmishes.
Because we didn't wind. How come there isn't a Warsaw Pact? We got to go. I don't know if I know that you're busy. I keep you.
We don't have the Warsaw Pact because now we have Iran, China, North Korea, and the Russians.
You get my point.
Yes.
Is that there were these things.
We don't have a Warsaw Pact because those countries hated the Russians and joined us.
We did. Well, that's true too. But we didn't accept winning. We didn't when the Cold War ended and the Soviet Union collapsed. We didn't say, "Good job, NATO. You neutralized the threat." We said, "To the victor goes the spoils." And I think that's where it begins. Let me ask you very quickly, because I don't know if you can stick around, but how do we win this without it going nuclear? Because it seems to me what you would want and what you're talking about, we're just talking about like 4 to 7 more years of conventional war, because this can't end conventionally because we would go to nukes.
It ends rapidly if Europe stops buying Russian oil, which we're willing to build the pipelines for them to stop, because right now the Europeans are actually giving more to the Russians every year than they're giving to Ukraine. You got to cut the funds.
All right. Well, it was always stupid to get involved in this while they were doing that, I think.
Yes, exactly. The Europeans are actually to blame here.
The Europeans,
if we led even greater, we wouldn't have this problem.
You like the fact that they've become vassal states. I don't. They're vassal states. I have to pay. They get all the welfare that they want because we pay, and they know that we're going to be secure. In the history of
global empire, and even republics have them, the vassal states, they send a lot our way. We benefit. I mean, again, you can say, but the cost. And I've got to explain that if all this goes away, you're going to be paying a whole lot more. Look at where Great Britain is now, which once had a global empire.
I think that your side would do a lot better if the military would stop feeling like they have to lie to us about these things constantly. We were never in Ukraine believing that if they lost, democracy would never happen again. Because the whole world looks at that and goes, "You're friends with Saudi Arabia." Yeah. And the whole world gets our hypocrisy. There are horrible leaders doing horrible things to their people all over the world.
Right.
We care when there's minerals under the ground.
Well, we care when it's in our interest. It gets us cheap oil. So, I mean, I'm totally Team America.
Then say that.
It
that.
gets
Don't
us
act
wealth, minerals, and you know what? They're not with China, so I'll take it.
All right. Well, this is round 1.
Yeah, there we go.
Eric versus Eric. The C versus the K. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
I
We've
did.
talked about that before.
Thank you all.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time. I
Sure.
appreciate it. Say hello to Alex Williams. Alex